the lease, several different provisions under the lease require that the rent be continuously modified so that it reflects fair market value. And we had not been doing that for quite a period of time, but that's no excuse for not starting it when you realize you haven't been doing it.
Right.
And that's what led to this. And the threshold for establishing whether it's a fair market value rent or not is to get an appraisal, which is what Mr. Albright did. He chose some appraisal parameters that the FAA disagreed with. And now what he's going to do for us is incorporate those parameters, basically to look at comparable sales only with respect to other commercial or light industrial usages. Whereas Mr. Albright had found the highest and best use under his original analysis as being continued use as a motorsport park, which is not commercial light industrial. That's the whole issue there on the appraisal. And so the appraisal was necessary to establish the value. There was really nothing to talk to firm about until we knew what that number was going to be. I mean, we didn't know. He might have come back and said, for all I knew, he might have come back and said, well, it's your rent. Your rent's just fine. But he didn't.
Can I interrupt?
Can I finish that? Because none of y'all got interrupted when y'all spoke. Everybody got to say
this
what they
isn't
wanted to
about
say.
the conversation. It's 5:59, and I think the YouTube runs out after 2 hours.
It's restarted.
Oh, you did restart? Okay, sorry. Yeah, that's all it was.
I'd like to take a break and get a bottle of water.
Yeah. The only thing I would just like to add to that is at very minimum, and I know you say, well, there's no reason to talk to the tenant. Well, that's fixing to be a heck of a surprise. I don't personally think that they would have had any idea that any of this was going on. And as far as they're concerned, everything's great. They're clicking along. They are seeing their lease and what the contract spells out.
Either at that point.
Well, but that's what I'm saying. There was this discussion going on in 2022.
But the discussion,
And it went nowhere at that time. There was nothing to talk to anybody about.
But what I'm saying is y'all were already talking about, you're not happy about that lease. It says that in that lease. You're not happy about that, unfortunately.
Are you suggesting that
No,
we look for a way to terminate the lease? Is that what you're saying?
What I am saying is.
Is that what you're saying?
When you're saying
Is that what you're
unfortunate,
saying?
I'm saying you were not happy with that lease, is what that looks like.
No, that's not what it said.
It's not. It
Okay,
doesn't matter
and then
whether
it
I'm
says
happy
that
with it
if
or
you
not.
can find if there's breach,
I just
okay,
explained
then you
that
can
to you,
bar
Mr.
enforcement.
that was a lawyer giving his client
Advice.
lawyerly advice that if you find a breach in a lease, this would be a reasonable time to take action on it. That's the way I read it anyway. Is that the way you thought it was
Yeah.
intended?
Could I elaborate on what Jim is saying too? And again, not to interrupt you. It came to my attention probably around that same time. And again, board members can't, if David's in there with Maria when she was here, I got to go down the hall and wait my turn or go down the thing and come back. We can't meet together. But at some point it came to my attention. And I think at that time they were only paying about $24,500 a year. This had been about 2 or 3 years ago. And Maria told me. And I said, are you kidding me? We've got another, and I'm not going to give the exact dollar amount because I don't know the exact dollar amount, but I know we've got another tenant on this field that's probably paying $17,000 or $18,000 a month. And they don't have 285 acres. Okay. So you use the word unfortunately in his email, and I believe that does say unfortunately. But I said, can't we get out of this? I said, they are robbing us. Now, let me clarify that statement or that word. They're not robbing us if the previous board, if Gilbert Reed, was that his name?
That was the chairman.
When he was the chairman and they agreed to that, nobody's robbing anybody. It was an agreed contract, and it is a contract which is legally binding, I assume.
Yes, sir.
And when I told Maria, I said, there's got to be some way, and she says, David and Jim have already talked about this. They've already researched it. And Jim has plainly told them it's a contract. You're locked into it until such time. And I don't even, the way I recall, I think Maria said And now if we're in a court of law, this would be hearsay. I'm telling you what I believe I remember. She said when their 20-year renewal comes up, we're probably going to have to stick with that contract because it's a contract. That's what we have been told. Well, what we didn't know as the timeline was going on and is that Maria was not secretly, but she was contemplating retiring. Well, Maria was never an airport manager except at this airport. And I tell you how and I don't think there's anything wrong with saying this, but Jim Young was here. And Jim Young left, he was our airport manager and left kind of under some extenuating circumstances. I'll just say he was asked to leave. And I think the board then, because I don't think I was on the board yet when that occurred, Dean Weaver was still on the board. So no, I wasn't on the board, but I was attending the board meetings. Well, Maria, because she knew a lot of the stuff already, I think the then board said the logical thing is just to make Maria the airport manager. She had never been to any colleges, any schooling or anything on airport management, but she did a pretty doggone good job, but she just didn't know everything. I'm sorry, and I'll summarize it, but then Craig comes in and Craig seems to have an extensive knowledge of a fairly extensive knowledge of the inner operations of or inner operating fundamentals of the FAA. And he knew from his background, you've got to have an appraisal when it goes to renew. I had never heard that until that man uttered that from his lips. And so I think what Jim is telling you, in all honesty, and listen, after I read some of the stuff that they've sent over and diagrams and stuff, I kind of wonder too, how did this go on for so long? But it did, and we're here now, like we've said before. So it's not him. I don't know if he's ever even been over to the firm. He's never seen him operate. I don't think he knows.
I just, again, it's just the information that's there, there were discussions that were taking place on the airport side, but nobody ever talked to them at all. And in my mindset is, in my point of view, that I keep trying to have somebody help me get out of, and it doesn't seem to be happening, is they're over there business as usual, doing what they thought that they've been approved and then all of a sudden it's turned on them and says, nope, you're breaking the law, you're not doing this, you're not doing that, and by the way, now you're trespassing and everything too.
Until we had the appraisal in
understand-
hand, what was there to talk with them about?
Again, letting them know we're fixing to do an appraisal because this is set to expire. Because if you're in the mindset, and again, I can't speak for them, I don't know, but I know from the element that they were surprised in their actions that I've seen,
So
anybody
that
else.
was wrong to go get an appraisal without telling them that we were going to get an
The
appraisal?
appraisal was directed by the FAA.
But wouldn't it be helpful, and as a good landlord, as a good airport, whether it's airport employees or airport board members, reaching out to our tenants? Because every single tenant that's at this airport, I think they would appreciate that. I appreciate that somebody came and gave me a heads up, say, hey, look, we're fixing to do this and this.
I don't know how much notice they were given once we got the FAA information it required.
I don't think they were.
But
Well,
either
We
way,
showed up to do an appraisal, and there
when
was
the
also
FAA
another
accepted
email.
that lease in 1999, they also acknowledged they accepted an appraisal that was provided with that lease application as well. So European Rally, they knew there was an appraisal done at that time. And they accepted that lease application. Now, what European Rally information passed on to their successor, the firm, we don't know.
Well, but my whole point is here, because this gets all scattered. To me, it has the appearance that information, there was not communication with them. The information did not get provided to us. We should have had that other in our board packet. And those are two very big things
I
in
don't know
my eyes.
what information would have been in your board packet.
The lease, the actual lease.
How would that have
Just so we
changed
could have
anything?
had these
It wouldn't have
discussions.
changed anything.
Why did you need the lease to make a decision on whether or not we had to comply with the FAA and get an appraisal
There
done?
was no choice. We had to get an FAA
we-
appraisal done.
Mr. Chairman,
Okay, but.
we
but-
have
with
hashed
that-
this out
Fact is,
and
With the FAA
we probably
giving-
should have gotten that appraisal a long time before we did.
But even with the FAA appraisal, does that mean that it changes all of the terms of that lease or just the payment? That's all that would have been.
so in addition to that, the FAA also wants to review every lease, whether it's a renewal or not. So that's another factor that came in when we complied with the FAA and provided that document. But your contention that we were wrong in not providing you with a copy of the lease to make a decision to comply with the FAA to do an appraisal is ludicrous.
It's not that, and it's not, and you're not going to change my words on that, because that's not what I'm saying. I'm not saying that we weren't going to comply with the FAA. As a board, we should have had all of the information in front of us before we took a vote on something. Whether you think it's important or not, it was.
Okay.
That's
Okay,
that's
okay, your
opinion.
point's noted. Is there anything else you'd like to talk about before I think there's two motions I'd like to entertain. First one is whether or not or how we respond to the firm's letter of request for us to pay for their track reconfiguration. So if someone would like to make a motion in that regard.
Did you start to make a motion, or
I did.
did you?
I didn't hear it.
I said the motion.
I think,
Maybe I should restate the motion.
would it be possible, I think that's getting the cart in front of the horse.
Well, I'm saying parliamentary procedure, if he made a motion,
He
we've
can
got
withdraw
to
it.
either withdraw it, or
Okay.
we've got to second it for a vote, and then,
Scott is correct about that. So
yeah.
why don't you just
Can you
restate
just
it?
withdraw it for now? I mean,
You were trailing off a little bit in your voice when you said it, I think. You tend
I
to
can
be mild.
withdraw that motion and restate it. How's
you
that?
could do it later, yeah, right after we do this other thing, so.
I'd be glad to restate the
Or
next
you can,
motion.
or you can make the
I'd
motion
like to
now,
make the motion to respond
see if you get a second, and then a vote.
firm's request for the airport to fund their track reconfiguration. That the response would be that no, we will not fund the track reconfiguration.
And I'll second that.
Would you like to discuss it further?
How much are they asking for?
Doesn't matter.
They don't know yet.
They don't know yet.
Yeah, well, it's in the letter.
It's 400,000.
Craig, do you recall? No, the,
An estimate.
what they wanted us,
JB Pro.
well, that's, okay, that's a good point. We probably need to be accurate about exactly what we're
Yeah.
deciding here. As my understanding, the JB Pro, or the way they wrote the letter is they wanted us to fund the JB Pro, statement of work or whatever it was that they submitted to us. Craig?
It was like removal and
Shall I read from
reconfiguration.
the
Sure.
demand letter?
Yes, please.
This letter serves as formal demand that KAA commit to funding the reconfiguration of the motorsports racetrack located within the premises.
No, that's the demand letter.
That's
That's the one they just sent.
Yeah.
the new council's letter.
I'm talking, okay. The letter they sent us in April,
DLA Piper.
yeah,
That's the DL, yeah, that's DL Piper.
that's the
Yeah.
one that they asked us to pay for, what JB Pro
Well-
had submitted correctly.
I don't know that it would matter the amount. My motion is that we do not fund whatever they're requesting.
Well,
Okay.
wasn't there a point made that that would not be a legitimate use of airport
That's-
finances to something that is not?
According to the airport compliance
And
manual,
that's
yes.
what he was reading on this thing, was it?
So the letter dated April 16th, 2025.
Yeah.
The fourth paragraph, that said, it is essential for the airport sponsor to assume responsibility for the costs associated with reconfiguring the existing racetrack.
Okay, so it's the entire amount.
I think that's consistent with the more recent demand
Okay.
from new council.
I think you're right. Okay. So the bottom line, I think, answer to your question, Buck, is we don't know exactly
Yeah, that's fine.
what that would be.
I think yeah, I'm good.
Okay,
Thank you.
yeah, sure. Any other discussion?
Yeah,
Well, should that motion include response to both requests?
I think it's better separate motions.
Yeah.
They're separate issues.
What other request are you talking about?
The one from April and this one.
Oh, okay, he's talking about the two different, one's a demand letter, the other was the April 16 letter.
I'm sorry, I'm
I
sorry.
think
Asking
if we
for the
word
airport
it,
to fund.
I think both of those demands are basically saying the same thing.
I think
Okay.
if the.
They
motion-
want the airport to agree
Yeah.
to fund the track reconfiguration
Yes.
plans construction.
And I think we just need to word it in that way. That says that we have decided
Is
that,
that direct a response then? Is that something that in your motion that you would have Jim respond?
I think so.
We'll send a letter.
So that would be part of
Yes.
it.
And it will generate a response.
Whatever the response is, I think it's my job to communicate it.
Yes.
For clarification and further discussion before we vote, and Craig, I don't know if you told me this or if this came up in a meeting. So the current breach is what, about 40 feet? Something like that into it?
in the RPZ,
Why is that relevant?
Well, because of the taxiway C extension. Were they gonna reconfigure for the consideration of the future thing? Or did you tell me that they would put a disclaimer in there stating if it ever got moved? Wasn't there something like that?
Well, the current status of that is JB Pro has the future taxiway configuration, and that JB Pro, whatever their plan is to work around those future areas. We have no guarantee that the FAA is or is not gonna move that runway. We can't rely on that. So the only other real safe way is we just have to assume.
All we know is that's a potential
That they might move. that.
So
taxway
that price they're talking
reconfiguration.
about would include keeping it out of taxiway Charlie's extension and setbacks and all that.
What price?
As far as you know, that 400,000 or whatever.
Oh, yeah, that I don't know about. But the
Okay.
18,200 is only for the proposal. It's only for the design work.
Right.
It does not include a bid.
scoping.
I did second it.
Okay, that's my question, so.
okay, so a motion has been made and seconded, and is there any more discussion before voting on the motion?
Okay. To clarify, I'm the B student. So
B
the
minus.
18,000 for getting the proposal and the 400,000, are you making those two different, or you understand, as long as you understand, I'm good, of how you respond to them?
I can be corrected, but my understanding has been, and I haven't had these communications directly with the people involved. My understanding has been that the 18,000 is the cost to come up with a plan.
Yes.
That can then be constructed, and that the construction would cost 400,000 or
Okay,
whatever.
so
their
what are we
current
voting
estimate
on here? The 18,000?
All of it.
All of it, okay.
No money.
That's what I need. Okay,
So your
All right.
letter essentially would say the board has voted that we will not be providing funding for the reconfiguration of the
Okay.
track or or the reconstitution of the track to its original, or the RPZ to its original state.
okay,
That's correct.
got it.
Correct.
Okay,
Does that make sense, everybody?
yeah.
Yeah.
Okay. So it's not just reconfiguring the track, it's
Yes,
also not.
yes, I just wanted
I
to,
think they're,
Because they
I
have an
believe the firm
obligation.
has
Right.
conceptualized the reconfiguration plan to encompass as part of the whole construction exercise, the removal
Right.
of the safety hazard.
Right. So do we need to reread the motion, or is everybody comfortable with what has been moved?
Well, we have the April 15 was the date,
Yes.
David? We have the April 15 letter
And then the June.
from DLA Piper, and we have the more recent, last Friday, letter from new council,
Right.
and they both seem to be saying the same thing.
That they
We
want
dem-
the airport to fund
We
the whole
demand
thing.
that the airport pay for the reconfiguration, which encompasses
Right.
the removal of the safety hazard in the process. And so that's what we're voting on. Whether the airport board is going to agree to that funding or is not going to agree to that funding.
So, no more discussion? Okay, let's take a vote on the motion. All in favor, say aye.
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 Opposed?
Aye.
Nay.
Nay.
Gotcha.
Nay.
Gotcha. Okay,
Okay, and again, that aye vote is a vote to deny the demand
exactly,
that the airport fund the
exactly,
reconstruction plan.
Wait a second, say that again.
Correct.
The I vote, the vote that just carried,
Right.
is a vote to inform firm that the airport will not be funding or paying for
Any,
the cost to construct the reconfiguration plan,
To include,
to include the removal of the safety hazard. Yes, sir.
okay. So now we get to the second motion that Mr. Dagenais made a minute ago, several minutes ago, maybe a half hour ago.
can we restate that?
Yeah.
I need to restate
Please
that.
restate it.
Yes.
The motion is to give firm notice at the date of June 25 of this year in the voluntary corrective action plan is a hard date, which the safety hazards obstruction must be removed from the RPZ area and the grade returned to master surrounding area. And if not, completed by that date, in accordance with the corrective action plan, that it could be grounds for termination.
Discussion on, I'm sorry, we need a second.
I'll say,
Discussion on the motion.
All right. Is anybody, I mean, I know that they watch these meetings, and to Bobby's point, I think they have got, according to my calculation, 15 more days
Correct.
that they need to understand that, I mean, I personally think, Craig, David, I think we've all been very lenient trying to help them reconfigure this thing.
I agree.
So I'm a little frustrated to go, okay, you have drugged this thing out. That is going to ultimately hurt them. That if they had just done the safety issue first, which was my big thing, my first meeting,
Right.
I voted for the safety issue. Okay, that's what we're dealing with here. So that's what we're still dealing with.
Right.
After all these months, the FAA has got involved. We have made all these decisions to help them. What have they done? They've done nothing. So on June 25th, when that deadline comes, what are we going to do? Help me here. I'm the B student. They're still in RPZ. This is on our reputation. I'm just telling you, I'm not an expert with FAA, but I have dealt with them.
Yeah.
They are not looking at us favorable.
No.
They are not, because we have been very generous in trying to work with them.
So,
My opinion, everybody, you can go all the way back to all these other things, but at the end of the day,
Right.
we are sitting here and they have not removed the track.
right.
David, you had somebody, I said I would go do it. You had somebody else. We have stepped up to say we'll do whatever we can. This wasn't our fault, wasn't necessarily their fault. I don't care who's at fault. What I care about is we're an airport that's got a track in the middle of our RPZ.
Right.
That is what we're dealing with. Jim, go ahead.
May I make this observation? I should have said this before. I talked with Bill Prang about this, and Bill confirmed that if we simply focus on the removal of the safety hazard,
Okay,
you forget about the overall reconfiguration plan.
Right.
If we just focus on eliminating what exists within the RPZ and that 10-foot buffer, there are no permits that would be required, and there's no notice to FAA that would be required. So whether it's firm or us or
Right.
anybody else, it can be done without those encumbrances.
now, once that happens, and I don't want to go further because I'm ready to vote and go eat my M&Ms. We're going to take a break, right? No?
I'll eat your M&Ms.
Yeah.
Already eating your M&M.
Oh, man.
Here's the evidence
Come
right
on,
there.
come on, come on.
I saw the blue one drop
here-
down and I started to grab it.
I've said this months and months and months ago. They're stuck because until they know what their lease is going to be, and we can't do that until we get the fair market value.
We'll have that at the end of the.
And we're going to get that in a couple of weeks. So as we take this next vote, okay, the issue is, and that's what they're fighting over, are they going to pay to move it out of the RPZ, or are we going to pay for it? And I'm going,
Now they know.
we didn't do this. We didn't put it in the RPZ. They didn't either. But somebody's got to step up and go remove this in another couple of weeks if we're
They
going to.
assumed it.
Well, whatever it is, you might be right.
Legally, they had the obligation to know what was their lease.
True.
Yeah.
But at the end of the day, our battle right now is they're saying they want us to pay for it, and we're saying, no, you need to pay for it.
Right.
My guess is in another 15 days, we're going to go, okay, if they're not going to remove it, which is a possibility, then what are we going to do?
Right.
Yes, sir.
You're going to look at me and go, Buck, go drink and get drunk
Well-
and go remove it. All
Well,
right,
that was
so
the
we-
last clause in his statement of the motion, was that
I didn't hear that.
If they have not completed according to the corrective action plan,
On June 25th.
Right.
June 25th, then it could be grounds for termination.
could be grounds for termination.
But did they have that date?
Yes.
Oh, yeah, they've got it.
That date, though.
At the end of the
So
day.
I don't know how-
This is an airport,
Right.
and we've got
Okay.
to follow.
Okay, and I get that. That's their choice, to be honest with you. Mine's sitting over there, and we tell them, okay, June 25th, you get, no, y'all got to pay for it. It's like, we're not paying for it. So you either remove it June 25th, or what I hear is fixing to come is, we're going to evict you because,
Could be grounds for termination.
are you with me? So, okay, I just wanted to make sure I understood all
Yeah.
of that. And
And to be clear, the way I understand David's motion, it's not a motion that the airport preemptively saying, if you don't do it, your lease is terminated.
okay,
We're saying, if you don't do it, it could be grounds for
Gotcha.
termination.
yeah, that's better. Okay, I'm good.
So that's discussion. Is there more discussion on the motion at hand? Okay.
So where's the teeth in it? So if they don't do it by the 25th deadline, do you have to go file an injunction with the courts
Well,
or something to?
No, he said it could be
If
grounds.
we take David's motion as it is stated, if firm does not remove the safety hazard by June 25, then the board's going to have to decide. We've told them that it could be grounds for termination. The board's going to have to decide, do they want to take that step of termination? That's a bright line demarcation in the relationship. We are ending it. And as part of a notice of termination, if it ever came to that, we would have to give them a time within which they would have to vacate the premises, failing which we would then sue to evict them.
And I would think, and this is just me discussing options for the future as well, is that on that date, we have met our obligations to them. They would have not met their obligations to us. We still have an obligation to the FAA and our customers and aviators to fix that RPZ. So I would think
Right.
that immediately we would start taking actions on our own to get the RPZ corrected. And that would be the information I would want the FAA to know as part of the meetings from this minute that, Craig, you're going to be giving them tomorrow, is that, and I don't know if we need a motion for that, or if we want to have another emergency meeting on the 25th of June to discuss it. But I would think that we would immediately want to start taking steps on our own dime to remove the obstacles in the RPZ and satisfy the FAA's safety concerns. That then could be potentially, who knows where that goes with respect to getting recoupment from the tenant for that, which should have been their obligation to do. But that's something that we could decide at another point.
So
To me, the number one priority is we get the airport back in compliance immediately upon the deadline of the date that we said it would be done.
Okay, so
Yeah.
hear my heart, okay? I would go help everyone and go remove it at no cost, okay? Why? So that we're back in compliance with the FAA. So there's no cost to them, okay? If I do it, if they do another way, or you got somebody else, I'm not saying I want to go do this. I'm just saying to get us back in compliance with the FAA, then I can take my tractor and clear all that out, okay? And now, in my opinion, it's back on them. Now you have no track, but we hate to do this, but that's what we got to do to be in compliance with the safety
Right.
issue. You with me?
Yeah.
And then from there on, however they think they're going to go reconfigure the track, they're not going to do that. If I was a businessman, I'm not gonna do that until you tell me what the fair market value is. I'm not gonna put that kind of money into a business
We'll
that
give them that information as soon as we get it.
I know, that's what I'm saying. So it's back on them
Right.
in June when we get that. But for right now, we gotta go come in compliance with the FAA.
Yes.
Because they're saying we can't go to the next step until that is in compliance. You with me?
Yes.
Okay.
But we will be taking then all the actions that are
Yeah.
necessary for us to
Yeah.
get back in compliance. Craig, you had something you wanted to say?
No, I don't know, Buck's
Second that much.
speech may have, I was just gonna say, if the airport
I did.
wants to prepare to remove those items, it's gonna be at a cost which is gonna require bids from contractors.
Right.
So if the airport would have to share that or go through that process, I could do that just preemptively.
I would recommend that we do that. It shouldn't
Yeah.
cost us money at this point yet, right?
To get a bid.
Right.
Right.
Well, the other thing, if I may say this, your tractor would do it, but it would put a lot of strain on it. We'd be
Right.
better to rent an articulating loader, which I can run.
Okay.
And with it, you're talking about a 40,000-pound machine that can go in and
Right.
just do.
Yeah. I'm good with all that, Scott. I think my thing
But I know you're trying to help and save us all money, because then we're gonna have to get in litigation to sue them for the
Right.
removal
Right.
and.
yeah, and we don't want
As
to,
in the motion, the onus is on them, according to the corrective action plan.
But there is a possibility, and I don't know, I think we should think this through. Let's just hope that they'll comply. Let's just hope and pray they'll comply. But there could be problems with you or I going over there, or you and I going together, because you may have to post a sheriff's deputy or something so there's no conflict, or even if we hire a contractor. I don't think they'd be doing anything crazy, but when people are desperate,
This sounds like something for a discussion for another time. I think we need to,
let's
I
just
think we need to
leave
deal
that.
with what's at hand.
Right.
move forward with what we've
This is
got and
all-
see
this is
where it
all
ends.
Foresightful, and that's
Yeah.
good, but it's beyond
We need to complete
discussion
the
of the
vote.
motion that's.
Right.
Correct.
Yeah.
Okay. So the motion is been seconded and ready for votes. All in favor of the motion as Dave stated it? Say aye.
Aye.
Okay,
I'm sorry.
I thought we already voted on that, I'm losing.
That was the other motion.
The other
Okay, okay, I'm sorry.
Okay.
Why don't you start that again?
Okay. All in favor of the motion? Aye.
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 Those opposed?
All,
Have it.
everybody vote. Okay.
Okay.
Thank you.
So I recommend we take a break, grab something to eat.
M&Ms?
And I'm sorry for.
Eat 'em all.
No, there's some more there. I brought, there's some more there,
Do you
Scotty.
want to just eat M&M's, or are you going to have a sandwich?
No, I'll do a sandwich.
Can we make it back at 7?
That might be good. I haven't heard you to call you. Y'all kind of need to see some reports last month. Took some stuff up. Chief Rick came and Frank County. I mean,
Jimmy?
being able to.
I said, good job.
Good job with board.